The first light of dawn spills across a rugged, ancient landscape. From the shadowed mouth of a limestone cave, a small band of humans emerges into the chill morning air. There's no moment of hesitation. Some scan the horizon for game, others collect kindling for the fire that smoldered through the night. The day has already begun. But what truly filled the hours of our Paleolithic ancestors? The cartoon image of cavemen clubbing mammoths and dragging women by the hair couldn't be farther from the truth. Their lives were not only about brute survival, they were about ingenuity, adaptation, and connection. When we talk about cavemen, we're referring to people who lived during the Paleolithic era, a span of nearly 2.6 million years, ending around 12,000 years ago. That's over 99% of all human history, a time before farming, before cities, before writing. But don't mistake it for stagnation. This era was alive with change, new tools, evolving social structures, and stunning artistic expression. We understand their lives through layers of time: stone tools left in the dirt, fire-blackened hearths, scattered bones of meals long past, and occasionally fragments of things that rarely survive, like textiles or wooden tools. Then there's the art, cave walls alive with animals, symbols, and dreams. And we turn to modern-day hunter-gatherers not as direct parallels, but as windows into what life might have looked like. Because the Paleolithic world wasn't one experience, it was many. Life in Ice Age Europe wasn't the same as life in tropical Africa or coastal Asia. Climate, region, and time shaped everything. A Homo habilis, scavenging on the savannas 2 million years ago, lived a vastly different life from a Cro-Magnon painting reindeer on a cave wall in France. Above all, climate dictated daily rhythms. During glacial periods, when much of Europe and Asia were locked under sheets of ice, survival meant different strategies. Coastal peoples mastered fishing, while inland bands tracked migrating herds or foraged in forests. But across continents and millennia, Paleolithic humans shared one thing. They lived as hunter-gatherers, acquiring food not by growing it, but by reading the wild, tracking animals, gathering plants, learning the language of landscapes. It began with the sun. Without artificial light or clocks, their days flowed with nature. As the sky brightened, someone stirred the fire. Embers kept smoldering overnight to avoid the difficulty of starting from scratch. Fire wasn't just warmth, it was protection, community, memory. Sites like Terra Amata in France, over 380,000 years old, show the central role fire played in everyday life. Mornings were filled with essential tasks. Was there enough food? Did tools need repair? Were there tracks nearby? Water had to be fetched, often from streams or springs, and carried in animal bladders, woven baskets, or, later, pottery. Their time wasn't structured like ours. No fixed hours. Instead, life oscillated between immediate survival and future preparation. At Gesher Benot Yaakov in Israel, nearly 800,000 years ago, evidence shows careful harvesting of seasonal plants, proof of long-term planning. Days centered around food. Men often hunted large game. Women gathered plants and trapped smaller animals. But roles weren't rigid. Archaeological evidence suggests flexibility in how tasks were divided. At midday, people might rest, prepare food, or sharpen tools. Then, with luck, the hunters returned, laden with meat or empty-handed. Either way, the evening came, and with it, the warmth of the fire. Nights were for stories, for bonding, for memory. Around flickering flames, knowledge passed from elder to child. Myth blended with instruction. Laughter, grief, and warnings became the glue that held the band together. Hunting, especially of large animals, was a high-risk, high-reward pursuit. At Boxgrove in England, 500,000 years ago, a horse shoulder blade bears a spear wound, proof of organized hunting, not scavenging. At Schöningen in Germany, 400,000 years ago, we find perfectly balanced wooden spears, engineered for throwing. By 30,000 years ago, humans had invented the spear thrower, drastically increasing range and power, and by 20,000, the bow and arrow appeared in some regions. Still, plant gathering was the more consistent food source. From tubers and berries to nuts and leafy greens, their diet was deeply varied. Microscopic studies of dental plaque revealed traces of dozens of plant species, including medicinal ones. Tool-making was constant, not an occasional task, but a daily rhythm. Stone tools dulled quickly. A skilled napper could craft a razor-sharp edge in minutes, but complex tools, those took patience and precision. Over time, technology advanced. The earliest stone flakes gave way to the symmetrical hand axes of the Acheulean period. Later, the Levallois technique brought new control and efficiency. And in the Upper Paleolithic, around 50,000 years ago, toolkits exploded in diversity. Engraving burins, hide scrapers, awls, and projectile points filled their world. Materials expanded beyond stone. Bone, antler, and ivory became essential. Fishhooks, sewing needles, harpoons, these were precision tools born from understanding and need. Containers mattered too. They crafted woven baskets and sewn hide bags. Clothing technology advanced with climate. During colder periods, hides were cleaned with stone scrapers, then sewn with bone needles into garments fit for survival. And while the caveman image lingers, caves were just one form of shelter. They were used seasonally and when available. In Ukraine, 15,000 years ago, mammoth bones formed the framework of winter homes. And despite the dangers, people cared for each other. Skeletons with healed injuries or disabilities suggest the sick and wounded were supported, not abandoned. Art flourished. In Europe's caves, we find breathtaking murals, animals, handprints, human-animal hybrids. Some may reflect rituals, others, memory, some, dreams. Music, too, echoed through the ages. Flutes carved from bone 43,000 years ago still play haunting scales. Such knowledge wasn't simple. It required understanding growth cycles, terrain, seasons. This ecological wisdom was learned, preserved, and passed down, generation after generation. Children weren't separated from adult life. They watched, they helped, they learned by doing. Paleolithic society was rich in meaning. Most bands had 20-30 people, tight-knit families with shared burdens. But they weren't isolated. Objects found far from their origins proved trade networks stretched for miles. Even healing had a place. Plant residues in teeth hint at herbal medicine. Violence existed, but wasn't dominant. For most Paleolithic groups, low population and abundant resources made cooperation more useful than conflict. Fishing, too, became vital. At Costa in Illinois, around 9,000 years ago, people used bone hooks and nets to harvest river life. Though limited, food preservation existed. Some dried meat into early jerky. Others dug storage pits into cool earth. Cooking was a revolution. Fire transformed roots, seeds, and meat into digestible, safer, more nourishing meals. This way of life, resilient, mobile, ingenious, carried us across continents, through ice and fire, from the savannas of Africa to the forests of Europe. So, what did they do all day? They hunted, they gathered, they planned, taught, invented, and dreamed. They were engineers, ecologists, artists, healers, and caretakers of one another. And when you look closely at the charcoal, the stone, the echo of a flute, they seem to whisper, "We were not primitive, we were the beginning."